Let's talk some policy here. You have a very senior role in Congress when it comes to the Middle East. And again, three-term member of Congress. In a town hall in New Hampshire last month, a guest asked, why are you not calling for a ceasefire in Israel? And at one point, you mentioned your relationship with Rashida Tlaib. And you said, I care deeply about Palestinian lives. Rashida Tlaib, my Palestinian sister, is my friend. I'm her Jewish brother. Are you a supporter of Rashida Tlaib?
We're friends. In fact, we just saw each other on the House floor yesterday and had a wonderful catch-up because this is painful. It's painful for the Jewish community, of which I'm a member, and it's painful for the Muslim community and the Palestinian community.
So do you agree with her statements and her policies?
She and I have very different life. I'm glad you asked about this because this is where Americans and the entire world have to take a breath for a moment, right? Her life experience could not be more different than mine. She is a Palestinian. Her grandmother, I believe, still lives in the West Bank. This is deeply personal to her. And for me, my life experience, completely different than hers. I'm a man of the Jewish faith. I know about the Holocaust, pogroms that brought my family from Eastern Europe to the United States in the late 19th century. We have different life experiences, but we recognize that at the end of the day, this is about humanity. And I take a lot of heat from the Jewish community for even saying I'm a friend of Rashida Tlaib's. But I'll tell you, this is what future leaders need to do.
But
we have to sit down with each other.
I totally agree.
I disagree with her.
Well, but that's the question, right? So I totally agree with you.
But we have to work together, Dan, because there has to be a safe and secure Israel.
But she makes some crazy comments.
And I don't like those comments.
She makes crazy comments, not just about Israel, about policing, about all sorts of different issues. Yeah. I would assume that you would say, based on the way you've portrayed yourself, that you would fundamentally disagree with her.
Dan, I disagree with a lot of people in Congress who I consider my friends. By the way, this is the problem in Congress. Why is it dysfunctional? Because people are not following our Constitution, following what our founders wanted, which is to have debate, deliberation. We do not see things the same way. We're not supposed to see things the same way. But if the approach is to simply refuse to engage, to turn your backs, to believe that you can beat the other side into oblivion, that's why we find ourselves in such a dangerous place in our history. This is why, actually, Donald Trump, when he met with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, much of the country said that was preposterous to meet with a dictator. You know what I said? I don't like the man. What he does to his people is atrocious, but he is a nuclear-armed nation that if there's not a semblance of a human relationship, that is far more likely to end in disaster. So my relationship with Rashida Tlaib, with the Palestinian community, is one that I want to plant seeds in and water, because if we don't overcome this, in our country first perhaps, and then in the Middle East, we are in deep, deep trouble.
Are you calling, do you believe there ought to be a ceasefire right now?
I've announced, in fact, I think 6 weeks ago I said, Hamas must release all the hostages.
That's not going to happen.
Okay,
so now, assuming that's not going to happen, so what's your policy?
But let me say this, too. There are 8 Americans being held hostage right now over 2 months by a terrorist organization. If I were the president, every single morning, every single evening, I would be beating the drum for their release, using every diplomatic tool, every kinetic tool, every single...
But there's no way you can deal with Hamas in that. That's idealistic.
And that's why we had to deal with this earlier. We have 2 terrorist organizations on our AUMF, the authorization for the use of military force, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, right? The most dangerous threat to Americans is actually Hamas. They are keeping Americans hostage. We should be pursuing their demise right now, along with the rest of the free world.
Well, we are, right?
Well, but so much of what I want to make the case to America is about going upstream, preventing problems before they happen, whether that's the southern border, whether that's war in Ukraine, whether that's the Middle East. Joe Biden has been in office for 50 years. 50 years. And look at the results. That's one of my contentions. But what would I do? There needs to be a ceasefire, Dan, and Hamas has to be eliminated. 2 things can be true at once.
But how can you do both?
They need to release the hostages immediately.
That's not going to happen.
Well, but it can happen. And
what does that mean? It can happen?
In return for a ceasefire,
it's not going to happen.
200 people. No, well, this is where the international community, Dan. This is where every single diplomatic lever has to be pulled.
And by the way, let's assume for a moment that they would release the hostages, right? And then Israel says, okay, we call it off. Hamas remains in power in Gaza, and they do this again.
I have 4 steps. Release the hostages with a concurrent ceasefire. Israel withdraws from Gaza. Israel does not want to occupy Gaza.
No, of course they don't.
There should be a multinational peacekeeping force that enters Gaza to keep both Palestinians safe and protect any terrorists from attacking Israel. That should not include the U.S. and Israel. Then there has to be a multinational strike force that will take down Hamas, pursue every single one of their leaders until they are eliminated. And then, this is the most important part.
But this is a fantasy.
No, I don't think so.
Look, it sounds great.
No. And here's the other.
But it's fantasy world.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.